Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Season 1 finale of Mob Psycho 100. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The show continues to be so unpredictable, and I don't talk about that enough, of how this show can go in directions I wasn't expecting it. This season finale, sure, I wasn't expecting like a big battle and stuff like that, but the events played out in a way I wasn't expecting it. You know, you're under the assumption like, oh my god, Mob's gonna pop his lid. Even Risu's like, oh my god, this is bad, like this is gonna be too stressful. But it turns out it's not at all what we thought it was, because then Regan just pops up. I'm like, wait, what? How did you survive? Because like the guy says like he curses his sword that yes, it's a plastic sword, but it still cuts through like everything around it. So how are you fine? And then he's also like, the guy goes for Regan's neck. I was like, wait, did he unlock some powers? Is he secretly a psychic? I thought that was so fascinating. He just breaks the sword. Then the guy who makes multiples of himself, Regan just like wipes them all away. And you're like, what's going on here? And then we get an explanation from the narrator. It's because Mob was about to like pop his lid until Regan did what he did. And listening to his master, because he was trapped between, I need to fight to protect the people, and that's the only thing I can do, but I also want to listen to my master who told me to run away. And so subconsciously he found a compromise, and that was, okay, I'll run away. I won't be the one fighting. I'll give it to Regan. Once again, he wasn't trying to do that, but he ended up giving all the power he was building up, everything that was sweltering in that moment, he passed it on to Regan subconsciously. And I love the metaphor of like, right, Mob had to, like, the bridge that kind of connects Mob to, like, you know, Regan and everything, and just the world in general. It's like it was kind of smashed in that moment. But all it takes sometimes are words and someone extending out their hand. Those words, it's okay to run away. Sometimes you never know the weight of words and what they can mean. And in that moment, it's just, in that moment, all of Mob's emotions turned into admiration for his master, you know? And so that's where it all passed on and went to like, oh, we went past 100%. We were at 1,000%. I was like, that's so beautifully done. And then like Shiguro is trying to use his power. He's throwing the black holes, but what's his face is just like Regan just knocking him back. So like Shiguro uses like a tackle technique, which I thought was pretty dope. I love that all his techniques were like this, like basically like a 1 ton, 2 ton, and just I love that, just like knocking Regan all over the place. But Regan's like, what are you doing? Like, and also if you're gonna talk to somebody, don't wear a mask when you're talking to an adult, and just like tosses him aside. And so everyone tries to fight him again, but he basically demolishes them because, like, Sakurai tells the story of, right, he was abandoned by his parents. He's like a home-cooked meal, mom's cooking, being loved. Like, I never had that. My powers were my only company. It's what kept me going. And I love Regan's like, okay, I have a similar story. One day it was like, it was something they had to do, like almost like a gym class thing outside, and he was like, I didn't bring food. And I was like, being like, that sounds like that was your fault. And he's like, hey, I'm trying to tell you about a time in my life when I was alone. And he's like, it's not the same thing, you asshole. But yeah, he breaks their minds about like, right, you want to turn against society. And he's like, look at you, guy who can make multiples of yourself. What's that in your head? What's that on your shoulders? He's like, they're shoulder pads to protect my shoulders. He's like, you're dressing up. You have all these accessories. It's the whole conversation from like last episode about like, right, they're kids who never kind of fully grew up. They're holding on to like, you are adults. You want to be something special, but it's like, no, you're just like commoners. Like, even if your powers make you stand out, at the end of the day, you're just like the rest of the masses. You're just trying to hide from the fact that you are. You want to conquer the world. How are you going to conquer the world when you haven't seen the world? Because Sakurai was making this whole point of, oh, you've only seen the good side of society, so of course you're going to have the perspective you have. But it's just like, you guys aren't well-rounded adults. Yes, like the world isn't great, but it also is like you only seen like part of it. You haven't seen the world. How can you dominate something you don't fully understand and have a rounded view of? You have a very closed mind. He even used the word tunnel vision. You guys have had so much tunnel vision because of your powers, thinking they make you special, and you know they're the polar opposite of Mob, who doesn't think his powers make him special, you know? There was even a whole conversation of like, oh yeah, your powers don't make you popular. It's like, Mob knows that first, and it's like, oh yeah, like powers don't make you popular. It's like, yeah, and like that's a lesson you guys have to learn. In fact, these guys, the two that are left of the scars, like, give up because their whole like motivation and everything kind of got smashed. Their dreams, it's like, yeah, like they had like a crash course on reality, and that kind of shattered their dreams. But Shigeru is not giving up. We actually finally see what he looks like. Once again, show this series surprising you. Was not expecting that. I love they were like, wait, he's an old man. The other dude's like, wow, I was convinced he was a girl. But I love that he's like, yeah, he's some old man that's like, yeah, I have special powers. Why can't I stand on top of the world? Why shouldn't I be acknowledged and recognized? And he's just like, fine, whatever the case may be, I'll make it all disappear. And so he snaps, and his gravity powers start like eviscerating everything. Like things start slowly disappearing. And Regan's like, okay, Mob, give me some more of your power because it's slipping away. And Mob's like, yeah, I kind of don't have any thing left in the tank. I kind of gave you everything that was in reserve, so yeah, I'm tapped out too. But then Sho shows up, and he's the one that kind of tackles it. I even love like how he handles Shigeru, because Shigeru tries to send like a black hole at him, and he just like he punches and reverses it and destroys it, because he's like, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that if it was a real black hole, but at the end of the day, they're just psychic powers making it pretending to be black holes. And he immediately defeats Shigeru. And then he looks at everybody and bounces eventually, because we find out Sho, it's like, oh, I was pretending to be a trainee. Actually, Claw, like, the higher-ups sent me to try and see if there was anyone in this organization worth taking back to HQ, and there was nothing and no one. He's like, well, at least not on the inside or something like that. And then he looks at Risu, because I think he found something fascinating about Risu that he's like, for now, it's like, you're still kind of a fledgling, but like, I see something there. Anyone inside of this organization, there's no one worth here taking. So it's like, right, this organization is going to be dissolved. So we actually don't know where Shigeru and Home Dude go. The other guy, the guy who had gotten given up. The good dude who does the spirit things, it's like, nah, I'm going to still keep going. And so he summons up his last spirit. He's like, oh yeah, it's definitely had to eat the others. And surprise, surprise, which no surprise at all, Dimple came out on top. Granted, he doesn't have all his powers back, but he's definitely back stronger. But it's like, cool, you didn't have a moment to show up to do the cool thing, because it's like it's already been resolved. So, but either way, Sho ends up calling Mob a coward, because he's like, right, you're powerful and everything, but it's like, because you're so powerful, you kind of, it's like, you're a coward for not like going all out. Like, the fact is, you let other people convince you what to do. Which I wonder, does Sho, because Sho doesn't have that in his life, it seems like he kind of does his own thing. And maybe that's why he looks at, maybe that's why he kind of looks at Mob the way he does. Like, seeing like, okay, you kowtowed to Regan. He recognized what Mob did. So it's like, you running away as a coward. You should have just like fought and like, yeah, killed him when it was in your way. But I guess Sho was hoping Mob would be more like him. But it's like, no, you're not. And maybe he sees something in Risu, believing Risu might be something more like him then. But once again, he bounces afterwards, so. Like I said, we don't know where the others go. I mean, we know like a lot of the lackeys ran away last episode because of Regan, and because he got them out of there and, convinced them to leave. And so I guess the others are just going to live their lives. And who knows, maybe in the future we might see them kind of return in some shape or form and get to see what their lives are post-Claw and everything, But they were kind of looking at it like, right, we were defeated. Not because they were that much stronger to us. It's also because we were weak. And they might just be the ones who can stop Claw from taking over the world. And so we pick up in the events of after all of that, it's just kind of life's back to normal. Well, we got an interesting surprise because of what Mob did. Yes, Regan doesn't have any of those powers anymore, but he does have, like, he can now see spirits now, whereas he was a complete fraud before, but he can at least see spirits now, so he was able to see Dimple. So that's only the major change. After that, everyone goes back. We have Taruki helping out the other psychic kids. He's like, cool, I'll help train you. Because, yes, Claw, the 7th Division might have been dissolved, but the larger organization is still out and about. And so we need to be prepared. Like, we all need to get stronger. You guys want to get stronger, right? So he's going to be kind of helping train them up. I didn't talk about it last episode, but because I thought he was wearing the fake hair because his hair, like he was overcompensating because his hair hadn't grown back. But I guess it was overcompensation just in case. if I ever get my hair cut again, like I did with the fight with Mob, I never want to be in that situation again. So I'd rather have like a massive stack of hairs, which luckily his hair did get cut again, but it's like, it's manageable now. So I guess that's kind of like the end result of that. I guess maybe that's the end of us seeing him with this wig or whatever. So, I mean, not unless he gets it back in the future. We have Mob back at school and, you know, looking at Tsubumi. And it's like, it's interesting because, like, no, I was actually super surprised, like, the love interest situation. There was no progress at all this season. You know, story like this, you'd expect some tiny, like, elements of progress, but nope. So, you know, he has Masato who's like, yo, I'm still looking for that interview. And he's like, well, I've got club afterwards. She's like, well, I'll wait till after. He's like, well, I've got my job afterwards. And she's like, Jesus, like, find time to talk to me. But yeah, yeah, like I said, I'm surprised there hadn't been any progress on the Tsubomi stuff. Like, they'd see them locking eyes, but, like, I don't know if she, like, doesn't talk to Mob because Mob, like, kind of avoids her. I'm curious about that because, like I said, they locked eyes, but she never said anything to him. Maybe because when he was talking to Masato, it could easily be that situation of maybe she doesn't have any feelings for him at all, and maybe she never will. We'll see. Or maybe it's a thing of she does have feelings for him, but like maybe him talking to Masato, we never got to see her perspective on that. But maybe she saw him talking to Masato as kind of like, oh, I guess he's got interest in someone else. I don't know. Because also Mob's been holding on to the fact that in his mind it's like, oh, she rejected me when we were kids and now we're in middle school. Like, you know, that was years ago potentially, and he's just kind of been holding on to that trauma ever since. So we catch up with Risu and Shinji. In fact, Shinji is going to apologize to everyone like Onigawara as well as everyone else him and Risu framed, and he's like, no, I'm okay with doing it. He's like, yeah, me and you, we both kind of went a little nuts there for a bit, but we got to make up for it. And he's like, I know the student council is probably going to hate me, but at the end of the day, he's like, I know my brother's going to end up helping me. So I think the whole situation kind of allowed him to kind of move past a lot of his insecurities, and Risu as well, and kind of become better people on the other side of it, which they confront Onigawara, and he's kind of like, yeah, I figured as much, but he's not as pissed because he's like, yeah, it sucks, but at the end of the day, he's like, if you look at the situation, the like underlying issue is everyone hated me. They were just looking for the excuse. It didn't matter whether it was true or not. Everyone was just looking for an opportunity with pitchforks in hand, and they came at me. And he's just kind of like, that speaks more volumes about me and other people. So it's like, right, you know, now he's going to change for the better. So he's kicking it with the Body Improvement Club because he's trying to change just like Mob is. So. But, you know, you got to give it up to Mob, still seeing it through despite passing out at the end there. And obviously Tome is kind of like still looking for the psychics out there, but no one in her club is giving any benefit. Like, no, like it's still kind of her journey alone. And so she's still putting in the work and effort, but literally no one else in the club is. So, but she's still going to keep up with the Mob of it all because I'm sure, like, for him, it's like, for her, it's like, you are still my only link to other people. Because she hasn't met Tsuruki yet. And it's like, well, there are a group of psychic people that are connected to him. Plus, you don't know that his brother has psychic powers now, too. So it's like, yeah, as long as you stick around, but you have no idea the growing group of psychics around Mob right now. I even love, speaking of Risu and Mob, when they were eating food, like, he ended up twisting his spoon, because normally he just bends the spoon, and I think the fact is that it twisted, I think is kind of implying, like, no, Mob is actually stronger, or at the very least, because he's become a lot more comfortable and confident in himself, that a lot more of his power is just leaking out now. Like, I mean, it might just be like, his natural state is now like, oh, a lot more of his power is there now. He has access to more of it without really accessing it. Or, like I said, maybe just more, whatever the case may be, however they want to kind of classify or clarify it in that regard. But it's still kind of neat that Risu ends up unbending it for him. And now their mom is just like, what's up with these kids? I love that's just the only role in this story. It's like, well, they were congratulating Risu on being awesome like he is, but now it's like, okay, he's got psychic powers. And their dad's just kind of like, oh, you know, Shigio's at that age. You know, let him keep bending spoons. They're just so nonchalant about it. But even the mom's still like, what's up with these kids and these psychic powers? Where is this coming from? So maybe that's all we'll get from it. We won't find out, like, oh, the origins of the powers. Might not be something that the story's going to tell. because I looked into it prior to watching the anime. To my knowledge, from I was looking on like Reddit and was seeing some forum talk about it, but for the most part, the anime is a pretty faithful adaptation of the manga. The only difference is like some of like I think what were they called, like the Omic. I don't know how you properly pronounce it. I don't know if there's those little comedy extra bits in like a manga, like the little afterward bits and stuff like that. That's the only thing you won't get in the anime. I think that's what that's in reference to, but I haven't read the manga, so I don't know what that's fully in reference to. But reading that made me go like, it must be like little extra manga bits that never got animated. But whatever the case may be. But the episode ends off on us finding out a little bit more. We find out who Sho really is. It seems like he's a plant inside of the organization. His father was interested in Claw, but Sho is like, yeah, this organization is not really worth it. So it's like he was implanted by his dad, and I guess maybe his dad it might have something to do with like, right, we know all these different organizations apparently have been trying to make psychics, and Claw is the only organization that seems to have had any success. Because they made it seem like, because there was talk about like, oh man, there's that one person here who has powers, and I wonder is Sho, like, was his dad the one that made him have the powers, or did Sho's dad give him over to Claw and they gave him powers? But it's like, your real intention is to really find out whether this organization is worth it, like I thought. Which we see Sho's kind of got a rebellious nature against his dad. Because there was a whole thing about like, oh, like whoever is behind everything is like supposed to come back to Japan next month. So maybe that wasn't in reference to Claw as a larger organization. Maybe it was. Maybe he's kind of been like away, being like, all right, let's see what Claw is without me around. And now it's like, okay, he had his son there to see like what the true nature of this organization is. You know, because the way the conversation played out made it seem like he had no connection to the organization, that he just had an interest in it. But like, once again, the whole conversation of the boss is supposed to come back to Japan like in a month. And that's, he's coming back now. So it's like, it makes me feel like that's who they were in reference to. But maybe he's been very hands-off to the organization and wanted to see what they were capable of. Once again, this is only the 7th division. So what does that speak about the larger organization as a whole? The other upper echelon people outside of like the 7th division? Like I said, will we see any of those characters? Probably. I mean, they might be characters you only get to see in some of those funny bits or little elements that are in the manga that might not be in the anime, might not get covered in the anime. So maybe that's it. But regardless, once again, setting the stage for the continued situation with our villains. I meant to talk about this when they brought up the Shigeo and Ritsu of it all, but I did like that, like, Mob was like, what did he mean calling me a coward? He's like, did I do something lame? But for him, it didn't matter. As long as he had his brother by his side, he was like, I won't worry about it then. Because it's like, it's just kind of being like, right, Mob shouldn't be anyone but himself. Once again, maybe Sho was also kind of being like, oh, you're a coward because you didn't bring out, like, maybe he senses what's deeper inside of him. And who knows, maybe Mob isn't the only one that has that. It might be like a tailed beast situation of like, oh, it kind of seems like Naruto's the only one. It's like, no, there's other tailed beasts, people with a tailed beast sealed within them. So maybe it's kind of a similar thing of what's inside of Mob is in other people too. Or maybe it's only in Mob. We don't know what that is or what's going on there, but yeah, I'm very excited to continue the series. Like I said, there is like this 1 hour thing that takes place in between. Well, at least I guess it came out between season 1 and season 2. I don't know what it is. I guess it's kind of like a special that, like, it's my understanding, based on the title, I was like, oh, I wonder if it's going to dive into Regan's past and more of it. Is it going to be more of a Regan adventure than like a Regan and Mob adventure? But whatever the case may be, I thoroughly enjoy this, and I'm so excited to continue the series and see where things go from here, how things escalate, what new characters we get, what recurring characters we get, as well as the characters we've been following so far, where their stories end up taking them in this crazy, wacky adventure of a series. And we even had that little bit at the end where, like, they went into the Mob and Regan went into the mountains to, like, hunt something. And then they ended up coming across one, but it was like possessed by an evil spirit, which Mob made it throw up. And it was the thing they were looking for, but he was like, who cares? I got all these mushrooms and we'll cook them up. And now kind of be our victory for today. So just kind of a little fun bit between Mob and Regan at the end. So I should also note and add that I am going to be bummed that sadly, obviously a new season means we're not going to get this opening anymore. And I'm like, this opening is super catchy, and I vibe out to it every time. I really like it. So I mean, it's going to be kind of a bummer, but I'm excited to see what the next opening is. Is it going to be as like not just chaotic musically, but also just like the imagery and the images and the things they chose to use for the opening for this episode for this season is so chaotic and weird. And then I'm curious. I'm sure the show itself is chaotic and weird, so I'm sure that's going to be replicated in the future openings. And because the ending obviously is very like calm and very stylized in its approach, but I'm curious to see what the future openings and endings of the show end up being. So just kind of want to add that in there. Because I hadn't talked about the opening or ending up until this point, but it's like, yeah, like that opening is a banger, dude. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.